Hello and welcome back to English Unlimited Podcast, the place where we break down English for you, moving you closer to effortless fluency. I'm your host, Charlie.
And I'm Jamie. Good to see you.
We have an incredibly targeted deep dive today. It's really designed for those of you who feel stuck, stuck somewhere between understanding and actually speaking.
And it's a really common place to be stuck.
Oh, it's the most frustrating place. Let's talk about that feeling. Because I think almost every single intermediate learner knows this feeling.
Right.
It's this demoralizing experience. You can read a complex article, maybe something from, the New York Times or The Guardian.
And you get it.
You totally get it. Or you can listen to a movie, maybe a podcast, without subtitles, and you understand, 95% of it perfectly? And in that moment, you feel smart. You feel like, yes, I have mastered this language. I've got this.
Absolutely. You feel that competence. You have this massive, complex mental database of vocabulary. Linguistically, those words are in there.
But then the real world happens.
Right. The pressure is on.
Yeah, a colleague at work asks you a question you weren't expecting in a meeting. Or you meet a native speaker at a coffee shop, and suddenly your brain just slams on the brakes.
Total freeze.
It's just silence. You know the perfect word is in there. Maybe you even know 3 perfect words for that situation, but they're like keys locked inside a safe, and you just can't remember the combination.
That is such a good analogy for it.
The words you need, they vanish. The moment you have to produce them spontaneously, they're gone.
That vanishing act, that frustrating gap between what you recognize, what you know is in your head, and what you can actually use instantly. It actually has a name in linguistics.
Oh, okay. So it's a real thing.
It is a very real, very studied thing. It's called the receptive-productive gap.
The receptive-productive gap. Wow.
Yeah, it's the chasm, and sometimes it feels like a terrifying abyss between your passive knowledge.
So the words I understand when I read or listen.
Exactly. That's your receptive vocabulary. And there's your active or productive knowledge. And that's usually a much, much smaller subset of words that you can spontaneously produce when you speak or write. The gap is what separates them.
And that gap isn't just annoying, right? It's where all the anxiety comes from. It's crippling.
Totally.
And you know what people usually do to try and fix it? And I've done this. They think, the problem must be that I don't know enough words.
Right. I just need more vocabulary.
Yeah. So they make more vocabulary lists. They download an app and try to memorize 5,000 single isolated words.
Which is precisely the wrong approach.
Yeah.
It feels productive, but it's fundamentally inefficient because it focuses on the smallest, most isolated unit of language, the single word.
And that's not how we speak.
Not at all. And our deep dive today is going to prove why that is such an inefficient way to learn and why it doesn't solve that spontaneous retrieval problem. We're going to show you that fluency isn't about knowing 10,000 individual words. It's about knowing how to string them together in these pre-made units.
Pre-made units. Like chunks.
Exactly. Learning language in chunks like ready-made Lego blocks is the secret. It's the solution to instantly making your speech flow and sound perfectly natural.
Okay, so today we're going to unpack the specific research-backed techniques that force those passive words into active duty.
We are. We're going to talk about techniques like shadow speaking and self-talk. And we're going to spend some serious time tackling that biggest psychological monster, that paralyzing fear of making a mistake.
Oh, that's a big one.
And we are diving deep into the science of collocations, those natural word pairings that really define what it means to sound like a native speaker.
And you said something earlier. You said we're going to expose how our own native language might be, sabotaging our English.
It can, yeah, without you even realizing you're making an error.
Yeah.
So here's a little teaser to keep you locked in for the whole deep dive.
Ooh, a pop quiz. I like it.
We're going to test you later with a quick pop quiz on common weather terminology. So think about this. If you say you had strong rain last night, you're actually committing a classic collocation error.
Strong rain. Yeah, that sounds logical to me.
It sounds logical, but it's not what a native speaker would say. We'll tell you why native speakers instinctively choose heavy rain and how knowing that simple little distinction can instantly elevate your fluency.
Okay, I'm hooked. If you out there are ready to finally bridge that frustrating gap between just understanding and actually speaking confidently, then this is the deep dive for you. It's custom tailored for this exact problem. But before we jump into our first segment, just ask yourself one quick question. Are you subscribed to English Unlimited podcast?
It just takes a second.
It really does. If not, just take 1 second right now. We'll wait for you and hit that subscribe button. And while you're there, please give this episode a quick like. It really, really helps us bring more detailed, research-backed techniques to learners just like you all around the world.
Okay, let's get into it.
All right, let's unpack this core issue, the receptive-productive gap. So what exactly is the cognitive or linguistic mechanism that lets us understand a word instantly when we're reading it, but then completely blocks us from using that same word 1 second later? What is actually happening in our brains?
It's a fantastic question, and it's the critical starting point. We have to dissect the nature of these two types of vocabulary first.
Okay.
So you have your receptive or passive vocabulary. These are all the words you can understand when you see them on a page or hear them spoken. This knowledge is essentially stored in your brain as abstract facts. They're connected to concepts.
So if I hear the word melancholy, I know it means deep sadness. The definition is there.
Precisely. That knowledge is stored primarily for decoding information that comes into your brain.
Right, it's for intake.
Exactly. Now, on the other hand, you have your productive or active vocabulary. This group consists of the words and the phrases you can use spontaneously, in your own speaking or writing without any conscious effort.
So it's automatic.
It has to be automatic. This knowledge requires rapid, automated retrieval pathways in the brain. So the real distinction is about speed and accessibility. A passive word might take, say, 500 milliseconds to decode, but an active word needs to be produced in, 50 milliseconds.
Wow, that's a tenfold difference.
It's huge. And the gap is that barrier that prevents that fast active retrieval from happening.
Okay, so my passive list is sitting comfortably in the long-term storage warehouse in my brain. And my tiny active list is sitting right next to the front door, ready to be grabbed at a moment's notice.
That's a great way to picture it.
So how do we build a high-speed conveyor belt from the warehouse to the front door?
I think the best way to really understand this is through a detail analogy, something that moves us beyond just thinking about vocabulary lists.
Okay.
I like to compare it to learning a really complicated physical skill.
Yeah.
Something like Muay Thai, or maybe learning to play a musical instrument like the cello.
Oh, okay. I like that. A physical skill. Explain that a bit more.
Right. So imagine you watch 100 instructional videos on how to play the cello.
I'm on YouTube. I'm watching the masters.
Exactly. You get all the sheet music. You know exactly what a C major scale is. You can listen to a recording and identify a perfectly bowed note. All of that is your passive, receptive knowledge.
I have all the theory down cold. I could pass a written test on cello theory.
You could ace the test. But then, if I hand you a cello and ask you to play a simple scale automatically, what happens?
It's going to sound awful. My fingers won't cooperate. My arm will be stiff.
Oh.
Yeah, it'll be a disaster.
Right. And why? Because the transition from recognizing the rules, that abstract linguistic knowledge you get from reading and listening to, actually producing language automatically. It requires converting that abstract knowledge into rapid, physical, motor action.
It's physical.
Speaking, especially spontaneous speaking, isn't just a mental game. It's physical. It demands that you train specific muscle memory in your mouth, your tongue, your jaw, and your vocal cords.
That makes perfect sense. My brain knows the fact, but my mouth hasn't learned the movements associated with that fact.
Exactly.
So listening and reading alone, no matter how much I do, it just can't provide that dedicated physical training that I need for spontaneous output.
It can't. The physical action is the key. So the question then becomes, what specific training do we need to do to convert that theoretical knowledge into automatic physical action? How do we build what we can call linguistic muscle memory?
And that brings us to our first technique, which I know you highly recommend. It's called shadow speaking.
Correct. Shadow speaking is one of the most powerful and critically most research-backed methods for building that active muscle memory.
Why? What makes it so effective?
Because it forces physical production under time pressure. It directly trains that pathway from brain to mouth.
Okay, so let's delve into the actual process. What is shadow speaking really? And what are the specific steps to implement it effectively so I'm not just, wasting my time talking to myself?
Right. So at its core, shadow speaking involves listening to a short segment of audio, pausing it immediately, and then repeating or mimicking the speaker out loud.
Okay, just repeating.
But here is the major difference from simple repetition. The critical part isn't just repeating the words. You absolutely must try to mimic the speaker's intonation, speed, and rhythm as accurately as you possibly can. You're trying to become a linguistic shadow.
Yes.
You're copying the music of the language, not just the lyrics.
So I'm focusing less on translating or analyzing the meaning of every single word
Yes.
and far more on the acoustic shape, the flow of the sentence as a physical event.
That is the crucial shift in focus. When you start, the priority is the sounds, the cadence, the natural stress patterns of English. You need to train your mouth and your brain to handle the speed and the natural
It's like
emphasis.
if I'm constantly thinking, wait, what does that word mean again? I'm stopping the flow.
You're interrupting the flow, and you defeat the entire purpose of the exercise, which is to make production automatic and physical.
So how should someone structure this? Like on a daily basis, should I just put on a movie and pause it every 3 seconds? That sounds a little chaotic.
It can be too chaotic, yeah. You want to start with a structured approach. So, implementation step 1. Use material that is slightly challenging, but still completely comprehensible to you.
Okay, so not a super advanced physics lecture.
No, definitely not. Maybe a 30-second news clip or a short dialogue from a TV show you like, something you can understand.
Got it.
Step 2. Start extremely small. I mean, really small. Begin with short phrases of just 2 or 3 words. Then, when you get comfortable, you can gradually work your way up to longer sentences.
2 or 3 words, that feels manageable.
And step 3, this is the pro tip. If you're using content like a YouTube video, use the subtitles initially, just to confirm the text, especially if the topic is new. But the goal is to remove them as quickly as possible,
Why? Why is removing the subtitles so important?
because it forces you to rely only on your auditory input. You gotta trust your ears and then focus on production. It strengthens that listening to speaking connection.
Okay, but what if the speaker is just too fast for me to mimic? I often find myself falling behind, getting flustered, and then I just give up.
That's a super common pitfall, and the fix is technical, so don't worry about it. Just pause the audio. Or, even better, use the playback controls on your app or on YouTube to slow the audio down to 75% speed.
Oh, right, the little settings gear.
Exactly. The accuracy of your mimicry, especially in the beginning, is far more important than the speed. Even just 5 to 10 minutes a day of focused, high-quality shadowing can produce remarkable results very quickly,
Why so quickly?
because you are actively forcing that physical production pathway to fire over and over again.
I want to challenge a point here, though. Why is mimicking the intonation and the rhythm so important? I've always thought pronunciation, getting the individual sounds right, was the main key to being understood.
That is an excellent challenge. And of course, individual pronunciation matters a lot. But rhythm and intonation are what truly develop overall fluency and intelligibility. Think about it like this.
Okay.
English is a stress-timed language.
A stress-timed language, what does that mean?
It means we put emphasis or stress on the important words in a sentence, usually the nouns, verbs, adjectives, and we effectively swallow or reduce the less important words, like articles and prepositions.
So we say something like, I went to the store, not I went to the store.
Exactly. If you pronounce every single word perfectly, but you speak in a flat, choppy, non-stressed rhythm, what we call a syllable-timed rhythm, which is common in languages like Spanish or French, you still sound robotic and unnatural to a native English ear.
So I could pronounce the word the perfectly, but if I put stress on the when a native speaker just reduces it to a quick the, my speech still sounds off.
It sounds off. And intonation, which is the way your voice rises and falls, that conveys so much meaning. It shows emotion, it signals a question versus a statement, it adds emphasis.
So by mimicking the rhythm and the stress through shadow speaking, I'm training my mouth and my brain to produce language in those larger fluent chunks that native speakers use automatically.
That's it. You move beyond focusing on single words to focusing on meaningful groups of sounds, and that is the absolute foundation of fluency.
I see. So shadow speaking trains my mouth to physically flow. But what if I'm alone? What if I'm, driving my car or cooking dinner and I don't have a video or audio to follow? I need a technique that forces me to create the language on the fly.
Then you graduate to our second powerful technique, the self-talk technique.
Talking to myself.
Talking to yourself. This is the ultimate technique for practicing spontaneous speaking 204/7. Self-talk just means speaking to yourself in English throughout the day, creating tons of high-frequency practice opportunities, even when you are completely alone.
Okay, let's explore this in minute detail, because I think a lot of people might feel silly talking to themselves, or they'll get distracted. We need concrete, structured scenarios that can fit seamlessly into a busy life.
Right. And the beauty of this technique is its low-pressure nature. There's no one there to judge you. And it's also highly relevant because it forces you to use the vocabulary you need right now for your immediate environment.
Okay, give me scenario 1.
Scenario 1, the morning routine narration. As soon as your feet hit the floor in the morning, you start describing your actions. You can use the present continuous tense.
Like, I am turning off the alarm.
Exactly. I'm stretching my arms wide. I'm boiling the water for my tea. This simple action forces you to use high-frequency action verbs and the continuous tense correctly, which many learners struggle with for spontaneous description.
I like that. It's low pressure, and it's forcing the use of precise grammar in real time. What's next?
Scenario 2. Decision verbalization. Whenever you face a small choice, articulate the process of deciding out loud.
For example.
Should I wear the blue shirt or the gray one today? The blue shirt is slightly wrinkled. I think the gray shirt will look better with these dark trousers. Okay, I have made a decision. Gray it is.
Ooh, I like that one because it moves beyond just naming objects. You're expressing hypothetical thoughts and an internal justification. That's actually complex conversational thinking.
It is. It practices conditional structures like should I or if I. It uses comparatives, better than. And it reinforces that essential collocation we'll talk more about later. Make a decision.
Okay, give me another one.
Scenario 3. Emotion expression and venting. This is a really good one. Practice articulating your current feelings. So instead of just thinking, I'm stressed, say it out loud with more detail.
I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed by the sheer number of tasks I have to do today.
Perfect. I need to prioritize, and maybe I should take a quick 5-minute break to reset my focus. This forces you to use more precise emotional vocabulary words like overwhelmed, frustrated, focused, and it practices the language of problem solving.
And that's often the hardest language to access in a second language, right? We just default to the simple emotional words like happy or sad.
We do. Our emotional vocabulary is often the most passive. This helps activate it.
Okay, what else?
Scenario 4. Activity planning and self-correction. Talk through your upcoming schedule or a task you're currently doing, and try to use transition words.
So like, okay, first I need to go to the grocery store. Oh wait, I forgot my wallet, so I will grab my wallet before I go. After that, I have to submit homework for my history class before the 5 p.m. deadline.
Yes, that's brilliant. That little dialogue practiced sequencing transition words first, after that, so it used the future tense, and it even included an academic collocation. Submit homework.
It forces you to organize your thoughts, which is half the battle of speaking fluently anyway.
It really is. And finally, scenario 5, reflection practice before rest. Before you go to bed, try to summarize your day in English. This forces you to use past tenses and maybe even structures of regret.
So today was quite productive, but I feel I wasted some time browsing the internet this afternoon. I successfully managed my time to complete all my core assignments, but I regret that I ran out of time to call my family tonight.
That's a perfect example. It reinforces those verb-noun pairings, wasted time, managed time, ran out of time, and it requires accurate use of the simple past and past perfect.
When you break it down like that, what this technique really trains is improvisation, isn't it? It completely removes your ability to prepare the sentence in your head in advance.
Absolutely. This trains your brain to improvise and react in English, but without the pressure of a judgmental conversation partner. When you constantly verbalize your decisions and observations, you're preventing that famous freezing problem in real conversations.
Why? How does it prevent the freeze?
Because the pathways for spontaneous output are constantly being warmed up and activated. You're building and strengthening those neural connections that you need for active recall. It's a key component of overcoming that receptive productive gap.
Okay, so we've covered the mechanical and the functional solutions, the drills. But now we have to talk about the biggest, scariest, most common obstacle in the room.
The elephant in the room.
Yeah, the monster under the bed, language anxiety.
Yes. This is the thing that can make all that shadow speaking and self-talk practice feel useless if the moment you're face-to-face with a native speaker, the fear just paralyzes you.
Exactly.
And the research on this is absolutely clear. Affective factors, things like fear of failure, anxiety about making mistakes, low self-esteem, fear of embarrassment, these are incredibly powerful influences on language outcomes.
More powerful than, say, how good your teacher is.
In some cases, yes. These psychological factors can significantly impact your willingness to communicate, sometimes even outweighing your natural linguistic aptitude or the quality of the instruction you're receiving.
Wow. So my own internal fears can literally be more powerful than my textbooks or my grammar knowledge. That is a profound barrier.
It is, because language learning is unique.
Yeah.
It really challenges our sense of competence and even our identity.
Yeah.
Well, think about it. For adults especially, you might be highly successful in your native language. You could be a doctor, a manager, an academic, and then suddenly, when you're speaking English, You feel reduced to the level of a child, struggling to express even basic ideas.
That's so true. The emotional burden of that is enormous.
It is. And you mentioned earlier that there are cultural layers to this too.
Yeah, how does that manifest?
Well, we often observe psychological factors, like stereotype threat.
Stereotype threat, what's that?
It's where your awareness of negative group stereotypes, say a stereotype about non-native speakers, triggers anxiety and actually causes you to underperform, to make more mistakes than you normally would.
So worrying about fulfilling a stereotype makes you fulfill the stereotype.
It's a vicious cycle. And there's also a genuine tension sometimes between maintaining your own cultural identity and adopting English communication practices, especially in formal or business settings. Learners can sometimes feel like they have to put on an entirely different persona when they speak English, and that can create a lot of resistance.
It's a very heavy emotional load. It definitely inhibits spontaneous speech. Okay, so we know the monster is real. We can't just wish the fear away. How do we fight it systematically?
We fight it by confronting the fear, directly, but gently. We can use a behavioral technique known as graduated exposure therapy.
Right, that term sounds very clinical. But I'm assuming the methodology is practical for a language learner. What's the process?
The core methodology is based on systematically desensitizing yourself to the fear. You do this by identifying the interaction types that provoke anxiety in you, and then you gradually, intentionally work your way up the scale.
So you create a kind of anxiety hierarchy.
Exactly, an anxiety hierarchy. You build a ladder of fear and you climb it one step at a time.
How do I build this hierarchy for myself?
You can start by just listing maybe 10 different speaking scenarios. Then you rank them from 0 anxiety, the easiest, to 10 anxiety, the hardest, most terrifying scenario.
Okay, can you give me an example?
Sure. The easiest level, maybe a level 1 with an anxiety score of 1 out of 10, could be just texting a simple English phrase to a friend. Very low stakes.
Right. No one can see my face. I can check my grammar.
Exactly. Level 3 might be ordering a coffee or food at a cafe. A little more pressure.
Okay.
A level 5 could be answering a simple, predictable question from a stranger, like giving directions.
Yeah, that's getting a bit scarier.
A level 7 might be participating actively in a structured meeting at work. And then, at the top, a level 10 could be giving a complex, unprepared presentation.
The ultimate nightmare scenario for many people.
Right. So you intentionally start at level 1 or 2, you succeed, you build a tiny bit of confidence, and then you move to the next slightly harder step.
And what you're doing is proving to yourself that failure isn't catastrophic.
Exactly. By intentionally planning these minor failures or awkward interactions in a controlled way, you reclaim control over the source of your anxiety. You normalize the experience of making a mistake. Every successful small interaction reduces the perceived threat of the next one.
This really demands a complete rethinking of what failure even means in language learning.
It demands a total reframe. The evidence suggests that speaking with courage and with heart, with intentionality and enthusiasm, has far greater practical value in the real world than speaking with grammatical perfection.
That's a huge mindset shift.
We need to internalize this mantra. A mistake is not a sign of incompetence or failure. It is powerful, indisputable proof that you are trying.
It's evidence of effort.
And it's proof that you are brave enough to try. You literally cannot learn to speak without making hundreds, if not thousands, of mistakes. Once you fully accept that errors are a necessary and valuable step in the process, the monster of anxiety shrinks dramatically.
Okay. But let's say I'm working with a study partner or a tutor. I need them to correct me so I can learn, but constant correction.
Yeah.
It just feels like judgment sometimes. It shuts down my willingness to even try.
Yeah.
So how do we balance that need for learning with the need for protection?
That is the crucial tension in productive practice. And it all comes down to establishing psychological safety. This has to be the foundation of any confidence development program. We need to normalize error making explicitly with our partners.
So how do I, as the learner, insist on normalizing errors? What do I say?
First, you communicate openly. Before you start, you can say something like, hey, my goal today is just to speak freely. Please don't correct every mistake. Let's just focus on communication. You frame mistakes as valuable learning data, not as failures.
Okay.
Second, you can ask your coach or partner to use language that emphasizes the process. Something like, you're making excellent progress today. Let's look at this one pattern. Rather than language that judges a fixed ability like that was wrong.
And what about the corrections themselves? If the red pen approach just shuts me down, how should my partner correct me effectively?
We need to use what's called appropriate error correction. If the goal is conversational fluency, correction should be selective. You should only focus on consistent, high-impact patterns, not every single tiny error.
And how should they deliver that correction?
Critically, partners should use indirect methods, like recasting.
Recasting. Okay, that sounds promising. But I want to challenge this. Wait, so with recasting, we're just modeling the correct answer without actually telling the learner they made a mistake?
Yes, that's the basic idea.
Doesn't that risk them not even noticing the error pattern and then they just repeat the same mistake later?
That is a very intelligent question, and it hits on a key cognitive distinction. Recasting works primarily on the subconscious level.
Okay.
So when you say something like, I go to the park yesterday, and I immediately respond, oh, you went to the park yesterday. What did you do there? I have provided you with corrected, comprehensible input.
So I hear my mistake and then the correct version right away.
Exactly. The learner hears their output immediately followed by the correct model, even if they don't consciously stop to analyze the verb tense. Your brain is absorbing the correct structure implicitly while you stay focused on the meaning of the conversation.
I see. So it confirms that you understood me, it models the correct structure, and most importantly, it keeps the conversation flowing.
It maintains the conversational momentum, which is the primary goal of the session. Now, to your point, when is direct correction necessary?
Yeah, when?
Only when the error is persistent, when it's high impact, meaning it genuinely causes misunderstanding, or when you have designated an explicit accuracy zone for your practice.
Okay, that makes sense.
And finally, a really actionable tip: implement accuracy-free zones.
Accuracy-free zones. I like the sound of that.
In your structured practice sessions, designate specific times, maybe a 10-minute storytelling session or a self-talk period, where the sole focus is on communication, expression, and fluency. And there is zero correction allowed.
Not from your partner and not from yourself either.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This allows you to truly experience the speed and flow of the language without the anxiety of constant performance evaluation. You give your brain permission to be messy.
Okay. We've addressed the psychological barriers and the fluency drills, which is huge. But now let's get to the core linguistic shortcut. Why those single word lists are so inefficient, and why language chunks are the ultimate secret weapon for speaking spontaneously.
Yes. This is where we shift the entire paradigm of how you should think about English vocabulary. The core idea must be drilled into memory. Fluency is not primarily about vocabulary size. It's about speaking in natural chunks of language.
When you say chunks, I think of little bits of language. Can you be more precise about what that means?
Sure. Chunks are things like fixed phrases and collocations that are retrieved from your mental dictionary as single pre-assembled units.
Pre-assembled.
They're stored together like one file in your computer, not like a bunch of separate documents.
So the brain, it bypasses the whole grammar assembly line process.
Precisely. Think about it. If you learn the word make and the word decision separately when you want to speak, your brain has to first retrieve the verb make, then retrieve the noun decision, then analyze the grammar rule, which verb goes with this noun, and then assemble the phrase.
That takes time.
It takes valuable milliseconds, and that's what causes that conversational freezing. But if you learn make a decision as one single chunk, your brain just retrieves the entire phrase instantly. It skips the mental assembly, which leads to immediate, faster, more natural speech. It's the ultimate cognitive shortcut.
Okay, so let's nail the terminology. What exactly is a collocation?
A collocation is a natural, conventional combination of words that sounds instinctively right to native speakers, and the examples are everywhere. Take a photo, heavy rain, or pay attention.
Okay, and how are collocations different from what you called fixed phrases?
Fixed phrases are a more restrictive type of chunk. They're complete expressions that almost always appear in the same order with a very specific meaning. You generally can't rearrange them or substitute words.
So like idioms.
Exactly. Things like, by the way, sooner or later, or break the ice. They function grammatically and semantically as one big, unchangeable word. Collocations are a little more flexible, but they are still highly conventional.
Wait, I feel like I use phrases all the time, but I still sound unnatural sometimes. How is the academic term collocation different from just a standard phrase I can build using grammar rules? I really want to understand the true mechanism here.
That is the most critical distinction for any intermediate learner to grasp. A collocation is characterized by what linguists call restricted co-occurrence of elements.
Whoa, restricted co-occurrence. That is a highly technical term.
It is, but it's a simple idea. It just means that not every synonym can logically pair with every other word. The system has rules.
Okay, give me an example.
Okay, think about the words strong and heavy. They can both mean intense. Right?
Yeah.
You can have a strong current in a river, and you can have a heavy book. Both make sense.
Right.
However, the English linguistic system has, for whatever reason, arbitrarily evolved to only accept heavy rain in the context of weather. That restriction is what defines the collocation. If you try to say strong rain, while a native speaker will understand you, it instantly sounds unnatural.
Because I violated the convention, the unwritten rule.
You violated the convention. It's based purely on common usage and what sounds right to the collective ear, rather than on technical grammatical correctness.
And you can't figure that out from a dictionary definition of strong.
You can't. And corpus research, which is where linguists study massive databases of spoken and written English, confirms this frequency and restriction. Let's run through 5 distinct examples to help lock this into your active vocabulary. We'll go from formal to casual.
Perfect.
Example 1, formal. To ensure academic success, you must maintain consistent targeted practice throughout the semester.
Ooh, okay. Consistent practice and targeted practice. 2 collocations there.
Exactly. Example 2, casual. I'm starving. We need to grab a quick lunch before the meeting starts.
Right, we say grab lunch, not usually take lunch or get lunch when we're in a hurry.
The word grab implies that spontaneity and rushing. It's the conventional pairing. Example 3, funny weird. The dog looked guilty after chewing the shoe and let out a small whimper.
We let out a sound, we don't release a sound.
Correct. Example 4, historical. Historians often meet resistance when they attempt to challenge established narratives.
Meet resistance. Got it.
And example 5, philosophical. Before making ethical claims, we must always establish credibility with the audience. We establish credibility, we don't usually create it in this context.
Those 5 examples are so instantly applicable, I can really feel the difference between constructing a sentence word by word versus just retrieving grab a quick lunch as one single unit.
Now let's demonstrate that difference in practice. We're going to do an extended scenario role play. A long, realistic dialogue between 2 students planning a study session. And we'll intentionally use high-frequency collocations to show that natural flow under a bit of pressure.
Perfect. I'll be Alex. I'm slightly panicked and need to get organized. You can be Sam, the structured one. My main goal is to not say, do a decision.
You won't, not if you retrieve the chunk. Ready?
Ready?
Hey, Alex, I'm running a little late. What's your plan for this afternoon? We absolutely need to meet the deadline for this big history project, and frankly, I'm starting to run out of time. I haven't even finished the bibliography yet.
Ugh, I know, Sam. I've been trying to make progress on the essay outline, but I just keep getting distracted by my phone. I seriously need to figure out how to manage my time better. Maybe I should take a course on professional organization next semester.
Maybe, but for now, let's just prioritize. Did you grab breakfast yet? I'm starving. If we eat quickly, we can go to the library and start on the readings. Let's sit down and take detailed notes on the core sources before we even try to write anything.
That's a good idea. If we focus on that targeted practice we discussed, just the main chapters, I think we can definitely submit the homework before the 5 p.m. cutoff. I'm feeling stressed, but I just need to take a deep breath and focus.
Exactly. Once we have those notes, we can make a clear decision about the essay's core argument pretty quickly. Remember, fluency comes from thinking in these chunks. If you just think make a decision, you avoid all that mental work of choosing between do and make.
It really does sound faster and smoother when you use those fixed chunks. I notice how naturally you used take a deep breath. It just flows.
So now let's look at the hard data behind this. Which chunks should you prioritize learning? Research finds that verb plus noun combinations are the most frequent type.
How frequent?
They account for about 50% of the total collocations found in major academic studies.
50%. So half of my fluency challenge comes down to knowing which verb naturally matches which noun.
Exactly. And adjective plus noun combinations come in a close second at about 41%.
Wow, so that's over 90% of collocations right there. Verb plus noun and adjective plus noun.
That's where you should focus your energy. Think about the verb pay. Logically, its synonym give would also work in many contexts, but English restricts it. Why do we say pay attention and not give attention?
It's just an arbitrary convention.
It's an arbitrary convention based on centuries of usage. If you learn pay attention as a single unit, your brain never has to waste time and energy worrying about the correct verb choice. The goal of learning collocations is to eliminate that time-consuming, frustrating mental grammar check.
That is the shortcut we promised at the beginning, but how do we make these thousands of chunks stick in our memory so we can retrieve them instantly while speaking? especially when we're under pressure.
Right, and this is where we address the critical error that so many learners make.
Mm-hmm.
They just passively read a list of collocations. That's not enough. You need to follow the personalization mandate.
The personalization mandate, what does that require?
It requires the intentional integration of these words and chunks into situations that resonate deeply with your specific life, your personal interests, or your unique experiences.
So instead of writing down the generic example, the students are making progress in class. I must write something true for me.
Yeah.
Like, I am making rapid progress in my Spanish lessons, and I need to submit the final proposal for my work project by the end of the week.
Precisely. That personalized context creates a stronger, unique index for that chunk inside your memory. It links the language to a high-emotion, high-relevance personal memory, which makes it far more readily available for active recall when you're in a real-life situation.
That makes sense. What's another way to activate them?
A highly productive complementary exercise is the storytelling exercise. You write short, vivid, meaningful paragraphs or stories that specifically require you to use 5 to 10 of your target words or collocations simultaneously.
So it forces you to use them together in context.
Exactly. This forces not just memorization, but structural and creative application. It boosts your ability to use these chunks in connected speech.
Okay, that sounds fun and really effective for creative memory. Now let's address a controversial topic. Memory tools. A lot of learners swear by techniques like the memory palace.
Mm-hmm.
And they are excellent for memorizing sequences, right? Like historical dates or complex lists. But are they good for vocabulary, for speaking?
And here's a crucial research finding that often shocks learners. Memory palaces are highly effective for long-term storage and for detailed encoding, but they are absolutely too slow for the spontaneous retrieval process needed for speaking.
Okay, tell me the cognitive science behind why it's too slow. What's happening?
When you're speaking spontaneously, you need to pull that word or phrase in under 100 milliseconds. A memory palace relies on sequential retrieval. To recall the collocation burst into laughter, your brain has to virtually walk through a physical space you've created, find the specific room, locate the specific imaginative image you placed there, decode what that image means, and then produce the phrase.
That whole process takes, what, 3 to 5 seconds?
At least. And by that time, the conversation has moved on. You've lost your turn to speak.
Okay. So the method that is excellent for deep, long-term data storage is terrible for rapid, spontaneous output. It optimizes encoding over speed.
Correct. So for speaking fluency, we overwhelmingly recommend focusing on tools that train associative memory and speed. Things like spaced repetition flashcards using software like Anki or something similar.
Where you see the native word and you instantly have to recall the English collocation?
Exactly. This trains rapid, real-time recall, which is what spontaneous speech requires. You're training the speed of that retrieval pathway from the warehouse to the front door.
Okay, so we have the vocabulary chunks, we have the confidence, and we have the active retrieval system. Now let's make sure that when we do speak, people can actually understand us clearly. We need to focus on the mechanics of clarity.
Yes. Clarity of speech, or what linguists call intelligibility, relies on a combination of factors, but primarily on 3 big ones: precise articulation, correct pronunciation, and appropriate pacing.
Okay, let's clarify those terms because I think they're often confused. What is the precise difference between articulation and pronunciation?
It's a great question. So pronunciation is about saying the word correctly according to its accepted phonetic pattern. It involves knowing where the stress should be and using the right sounds.
So saying project as a noun and projecit as a verb.
Exactly, that's pronunciation. Articulation, on the other hand, is the physical, mechanical use of your mouth, your tongue, your lips, your teeth to produce those sounds distinctly.
So it's about clarity.
Think of pronunciation as the musical score, and articulation as the physical skill of the musician playing the notes clearly without them blurring together. Misarticulation is mechanical. It leads to mumbling or slurring, even if your underlying knowledge of the sound is correct.
That distinction is key. Articulation is the mechanical how, and then there's pacing. I know I tend to speak way too quickly when I get nervous. I think that speed equals fluency.
It's a very common cognitive trap. But speaking too quickly leads to sound reduction, mumbling. It obscures your important points. But on the flip side, speaking too slowly can also be disengaging and sound halting.
So you need to find that sweet spot in the middle.
Finding a moderate, measured pace is crucial for intelligibility. And another thing, thoughtful, strategic pauses can actually make you sound more fluent. They help you emphasize key points and allow your audience time to absorb your message.
So what practical physical drills can we use to improve articulation, that mechanical clarity of the sound output?
The best drills are highly physical. They include things like tongue twisters and reading aloud, but with maximum attention to the feeling in your mouth.
So I should really be feeling the movement.
Yes. These exercises train the specific mouth and tongue muscles required for English sounds, which often differ significantly from the sounds in your first language. And critically, you should consciously focus on speaking slowly and clearly before you ever attempt to increase your speed. We have to build accurate, distinct muscle memory first.
Okay, let's focus on our target word here. How do I know if I need to work on just speaking clearly versus specifically on articulating my words?
Articulation refers specifically to that physical, mechanical process of using your articulators, your mouth parts, to produce speech sounds distinctly.
Yeah.
Clarity is the result of good articulation. If I tell you to improve your articulation, I'm telling you to physically move your tongue more intentionally.
I see. Articulation is the intentional physical process. Can you give us some examples that focus on that physical action, maybe highlighting some common difficulties for non-native speakers?
Absolutely. Let's do our 5 examples. Example 1, formal. When addressing the committee, the chairperson must enunciate clearly to ensure that every word of the proposal is conveyed.
And enunciate is a great synonym for articulate clearly.
It is. It implies that intentional action of opening your jaw slightly wider, controlling your lip movement. Example 2, casual. Please refine your articulation on the sound. Remember to put your tongue between your teeth, or it sounds like an S or a Z.
So that's focusing on the required tongue placement for a specific phone.
Right. Example 3, funny weird. The actor was so overdramatic that his speech articulation was ridiculously precise, almost like he was chewing the scenery.
I can picture that. Exaggerated, almost painful mouth movements.
Exactly. Example 4, historical. Early radio broadcasters were specifically trained to maintain clear articulation in order to overcome the poor quality of the early transmission technology. They had to be super clear.
That makes sense.
And example 5, practical. In a noisy environment, you must intentionally exaggerate your speech sounds and project your voice slightly to maintain high intelligibility.
I'm visualizing the mouth movements now. It's all about creating distinct boundaries for each and every sound.
And remember that projection is also key to this. You need to use good posture and breathing from your diaphragm to project your voice without shouting. That actually gives you better control over your articulation.
Okay, let's put this into an extended scenario role play. I'm going to ask you for advice on my articulation.
Perfect. I'll be the speech coach, and you're the student trying to improve your clarity.
Okay.
All right, Charlie, I've noticed that when you speak quickly, especially at the end of your sentences, your final consonants tend to disappear. They get a bit weak, and your overall clarity drops significantly.
I know. I try to keep up the pace because I want to sound fluent, but then I start to mumble and my pacing becomes really erratic and uneven. How do I fix the mechanics?
We need to focus intensely on articulation drills. Let's take a simple tongue twister like, "She sells seashells by the seashore." I want you to practice it 10 times, but really focus on physically separating that she sound from the a sound. I want you to actively enunciate clearly, even slightly exaggerating the movement of your lips and your tongue at first.
So I should actually practice speaking more slowly at first just to get the mechanics right and then build up the speed later.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Consciously slow down, focus on hitting those distinct sounds, and you'll find that when you do naturally speed up later, your refined articulation will become automatic and crisp, not sloppy. It's training the muscles, just like shadow speaking trains the flow.
Okay, speaking of errors, let's connect back to the source of many of these collocation and even articulation mistakes. L1 interference. This is that negative transfer where my native language habits bleed into my English.
This is a major area of study in linguistics because L1 transfer causes frequent and often predictable erroneous collocation generation. And critically, this happens even at very advanced proficiency levels.
So even if my grammar is great, I can still make these mistakes.
Yes, because your native linguistic system is so deeply ingrained that it naturally defaults to literal word-for-word translation when you're under pressure.
Let's look at the specific examples we found in the research, starting with the collocation errors that come from literal translation from Arabic, since that's what the source material provides.
Right. Case study example 1, the mother tongue mistake. Many Arabic-speaking learners will use the phrase mother language. This is grammatically understandable, but it's what we call a low fixedness collocation in English. It's not the standard term.
And you said earlier that native speakers prefer mother tongue or native language. So where does that specific error, mother language, come from?
It's often a direct, literal translation of the common Arabic phrase, Yuwa Sino, Alua Alum, which literally means the language, the mother.
So mother language, the learner isn't guessing, they're just translating the structure of their L1 into English word for word, and in the process, they violate the established English convention.
Exactly. And here's another one related to verb choice. Case study example 2. Unnatural verb use. Learners might misuse the phrase have language to mean know or speak a language. For instance, saying something like, you must have another foreign language to get this job.
That is totally understandable, but yeah, completely unnatural in English.
Right. And this is likely a direct structural translation from colloquial Arabic, where that construction is perfectly acceptable.
Yeah.
In English, we simply use the verbs speak or know.
So the research implication here is crucial. L1 influence is this pervasive issue that requires dedicated awareness. We need to actively replace those literal word-for-word translations with the natural high-fixedness English collocations and fixed phrases.
Yes, you have to consciously override your L1 instinct.
But L1 interference goes beyond just simple word pairings, right? It can affect
Yes.
syntax or even the use of small functional words.
Absolutely. Consider the difficulty so many learners have with articles, the words a, and they. Many first languages, including Arabic and various East Asian languages, either don't have articles at all or use them in a completely different way.
Yeah.
So when a learner from one of those L1 backgrounds speaks English, they're often forced to guess or they just omit the articles entirely. This leads to common errors like, I went to park yesterday, instead of I went to the park yesterday. This isn't a lack of knowledge, it's the lack of an equivalent structural mechanism in their L1.
That explains why those tiny little words are so incredibly hard to master. It requires your brain to access a structure that just doesn't exist in its default language mode.
Precisely. Another quick example is the overuse of the verb go. Learners might say, I go to take a rest, which is a literal translation. The natural English collocation is take a rest, or just rest. Recognizing these L1 traps is the first step to overriding them.
Okay, this is the practical application part of our deep dive. We're going to walk through several of the most common high-frequency mistakes that intermediate learners make, and we're going to instantly correct them with the proper collocation. Jamie, let's be brutal with our corrections.
Let's do it. Let's start transforming that passive knowledge into active, correct usage right now.
Okay, mistake number 1, choosing the wrong adjective for weather intensity. Here's the one we teased. I was outside yesterday, the storm was terrible, powerful. Can I say it like this? We had strong rain last night. I mean, it felt strong, right?
I completely understand the logic. Strong implies intensity. But a native speaker would universally say heavy rain. This is a fundamental adjective plus noun collocation rule. For weather involving precipitation, the intensity word is heavy, not strong. We also say heavy snow or heavy fog.
Wait, so the intensity word for rain is heavy, but what about wind?
For wind we use strong. We say strong wind, not heavy wind.
That's so confusing. So it's heavy rain, but strong wind.
It is restricted co-occurrence in action. You just have to learn them as fixed chunks. Heavy rain, strong wind. Using strong rain avoids the correct collocation and instantly marks your language as unnatural, even though it's perfectly comprehensible.
Okay, got it. Next mistake. This is the most common verb mistake. I want to tell my boss I reached a conclusion about the new strategy. Can I say? I decided to do a decision to travel next month.
The classic Mato trap. A native speaker would actually say, make a decision. We also make a suggestion, make a plan, or make a comment. Generally, make is associated with creating something new, generating an output.
And do.
Do is associated with performing an activity or a task. You do homework, you do the dishes, you do business. This mistake almost always results from translating a single L1 verb that covers both of those actions.
So the rule is, if I'm generating a result or an output, I likely need to use make.
That's a great rule of thumb. Just store make a decision as one immutable, unbreakable chunk in your brain.
Okay, next one. Mistake number 3. Using generic, non-specific adjectives. I often find myself defaulting to simple adjectives because they're easy to retrieve fast. We'll just talk about a big challenge or a good presentation. Is that wrong?
It's not wrong, but it's not very expressive. Studies have found that intermediate learners tend to overuse these general use adjectives like good, big, or important. Instead of the generic big challenge, a native speaker might say a major challenge or a significant challenge.
And instead of a good presentation.
You could say a convincing presentation, or an excellent presentation, or a persuasive presentation.
So using a more precise adjective is directly linked to having better collocational knowledge.
Precisely. It makes your vocabulary so much more expressive and sophisticated. It shows you know the exact right word for that specific context.
Okay, mistake number 4. Using a wrong verb for starting something. I'm starting a new career path. Can I say, I'm going to open a new career?
While open is a great verb, when we talk about starting a career or a business, we don't open it. We start a career, or maybe more formally, we embark on a career. For a business, we would say we launch a new business, not open a new business, unless you mean you are physically opening the doors to a shop for the first time.
So launch a business is the fixed chunk associated with a new venture. Got it.
Okay, next one. Incorrectly describing the volume of sound.
Right. My friend is shouting. I want to tell him his voice is very high. Your voice is too high. Please be quiet.
That's a perfect logical transfer from many L1s, but in English, high describes pitch, like a soprano singer has a high voice. When we talk about volume, we use the word loud. You say, you have a loud voice, or please don't speak so loudly.
So high voice is for pitch, loud voice is for volume. Another one of those restricted co-occurrences.
Exactly.
Last one. Making assumptions about phrasal verbs. These are a nightmare. I want to tell my coworker to investigate this situation. Can I say, please look the situation up?
If you say that, it sounds like you're asking them to search for the definition of situation in a dictionary. We use look up when we're retrieving information like looking up a word. If you mean investigate or examine, the correct collocation is look into the situation.
Wow.
This just shows how incredibly sensitive phrasal verbs are to that tiny little preposition. You have to learn the entire phrasal verb and its meaning as a single chunk.
That was an incredibly dense and valuable deep dive into the real mechanics of fluency and confidence. We went so far beyond just simple word lists. Jamie, let's wrap this up with a quick quiz for our listeners.
All right, listener, let's see how much of that critical information was moved from your passive knowledge into your active recall today. Ready?
I'm ready.
Question 1. Which specific practice technique involves mimicking a speaker's intonation, speed, and rhythm to build linguistic muscle memory?
Okay, that's the one that focuses on the flow, not just the words. That would be shadow speaking.
Correct.
Yes.
Question 2, true or false? The crucial research finding is that storing vocabulary in a detailed memory palace is the best way to develop active, spontaneous speaking ability.
Ooh, I remember this challenge. That is false. The retrieval process for that kind of sequential memory is simply too slow for spontaneous conversation.
Absolutely false. We need speed. Okay, final question.
Let's do it.
Question 3. What is the specific linguistic term for word combinations like make a decision or heavy rain, which are characterized by that restricted co-occurrence and sound natural to native speakers?
That's the secret building block of fluency that lets you bypass the grammar check. The term is collocation.
Correct. 3 for 3. Excellent job to everyone at home who took the quiz. Now let's just summarize our top takeaways to really cement this learning.
Okay, top 3 core concepts to remember. First, bridging the gap. You absolutely must convert your passive knowledge to active use. You have to use dedicated production drills like shadowing and self-talk. Listening and reading alone will never produce spontaneous speech.
Second, the secret shortcut. Collocations are the key building blocks of fast, natural fluency. You have to learn language in chunks like pay attention or make progress to eliminate that mental assembly line.
And third, the foundation. Psychological safety is everything. That means normalizing errors through techniques like recasting and viewing your mistakes as proof of your courage. That is the required foundation for building real speaking confidence.
And here are the top 5 words we thoroughly dissected today that you should intentionally try to move into your active vocabulary this week. Collocation, articulation, shadowing, enunciate, and pacing.
And now for your micro-challenge. We want you to implement the self-talk technique in a very structured way tomorrow. Just take one common action you perform, like making a choice about what to wear or reviewing your schedule, and use the self-talk technique to narrate that entire process in English. And while you're doing it, focus on using one new collocation we talked about today. Maybe make a decision or grab breakfast.
Force yourself to verbalize your internal monologue for just 5 minutes.
Yeah.
It is the highest leverage activity you can possibly perform when you're alone.
We covered so much today, from the linguistic mechanics of chunks to the psychological strategies for fighting anxiety. We really hope this deep dive helps you unlock those words from your passive memory and get them right into your active speaking voice.
Absolutely.
And please don't forget to like and subscribe to English Unlimited Podcast. We'll be back soon with another deep dive to help make your English sound effortless. I'm Charlie.